Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry here from Team Wilpers. Very excited to welcome you to the start of our Winter Run Challenge program. This is a particularly fun one, I think, coming at the exact right time of year, so I think you're going to love it. And there's a main goal of our challenge here is simple. It's just to improve the result of that 20-minute distance test over the course of an 8-week period. However, we go about it a little bit differently each time, and this is no exception. So the way we're going to go about it this time is that work on anaerobic capacity. We're going to include incline training and certainly some work on our just overall running endurance here. So as I mentioned, I love this style of working out, especially at this point of the season right here. This is a great style of work to be doing kind of during a kind of a naturally running off season and or early in another season. So if you have kind of big late spring, early summer events, this is a great style of working out to be doing right now. So let's talk about the characteristics of the style of some of our intervals that we're going to see through this challenge. And they're going to be relatively high intensity. High intensity being kind of a scale on an RPE scale of maybe like 8 out of 10 in terms of what we're going to hit in those anaerobic capacity intervals there. But it's with relatively generous recovery. So before anyone gets too nervous, I actually find this style of working out to ultimately feel a lot easier than maybe the long tempos or thresholds or marathon pace workouts, because despite the fact that the pace is much faster, the recovery is substantially longer and the duration of the interval itself is much shorter as well. So I have a blast doing these workouts. I think you will as well. But before we dig into the workouts, let's talk about some of the housekeeping you'll need for the challenge itself. And we'll start with the website here. And so the website's going to have some important things. It's going to have your paces. It's going to have the workouts for your week. And it's going to have a very important square to check off to chase your completion percentage total over the course of the challenge. And the best way to put yourself in a position to be successful is to simply complete 100% of those workouts, and you're going to put yourself in a position to go in and achieve the results you wanted on that 20-minute distance test the second time around. So make sure to get in there, check that box, and chase that 100% completion percentage. The paces provided are going to be purely based upon the 20-minute distance test. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit, but you're going to need to input that result using the gear icon in the kind of top left corner of that pace box. Now let's talk about our week 1 workouts, and we'll start with the 20-minute distance test. So this is very simple. It's just as far as you can run in 20 minutes. So it is a max effort. It's not something that should be kind of it's not a progression run. It's not a negative split per se. It is a max effort 20-minute test. So your pace zones will be negatively affected if you don't give it a nice hard effort here. This workout can be done indoors, outdoors, on the track, on the road, etc. You just want to warm up well. You want to start nice and hard. You want to push through and finish hard, and then take that result, pop it in the pace box, and you have your paces for the next 8 weeks. A good time of year, I don't always include this, but I like to bring it back, especially we're here at top of 2025, of why we include performance testing as part of our equation here. And simply, it's the most accurate way of determining exactly where you are right now. So it takes into account running economy, efficiency, determination, general mental toughness, etc. And so why are these important? Well, we want to meet you where you are today, not where you were at the end of your fall season, maybe not where you were at the best day of your running career. We want to make the paces appropriate for where things are right now. I shared last week with half marathoners, and I'll share this week with you all. One of the greatest gifts I gave to myself as a runner within the last several years is actually greatly reducing my training paces. I was still trying to train based on some of my best times of all time in my late 20s, and a decade has passed since then. So I was no longer running at that speed, unfortunately, and I was still trying to just kind of fight through it. And as I mentioned, the best gift I gave to myself was to actually reduce my training paces, find what was appropriate for right now, and it's been a real joy. So it's not a straight line to the top. That's okay to go forward. It's certainly great to go forward. It's okay to go backwards. That's actually going to set you up for a much better ability to get back to where you wanted to be. So long story short point, which is we want to make sure that everything is appropriate for right now. Let's talk very quickly of how to prep for the test. So I want you to prep for the test, but not overthink it. So rest up. Don't come into this tired after another hard workout. Don't come in after your key workout on another sport, etc. You've got to give it a good, hard, honest effort. Don't overthink it. It's not that complicated. You just run hard for 20 minutes, and at the end of it, you have your result. No holding back. It does set the baseline for your next 8 weeks. So giving a good, hard, honest effort is going to allow you to get the most out of this challenge. And then no particular strategy here in week 1. You don't need a strategy if you've never done the test before. You just go give a hard effort and then you have your result. The great thing about doing a baseline test or a benchmark test like this is once you've done it once, you now have that benchmark. And so when you go to do it again at let's say the end of the challenge, another challenge, etc., all you have to do is go and try to beat that benchmark. So you have to create the benchmark so that you have it for the second test, the third test, the fourth test, etc. But it all starts with that first 20-minute test. If, however, you tested within the last 4 weeks and feel really good about your test, go ahead and start this program off with a progression run. Very typical start to the program for me. If you've already tested, and this is an opportunity to test those pace ranges over different ranges, see how things are feeling, make sure that the paces that you have feel appropriate for the challenge to come. Let's go ahead and jump into the workouts here for week 1. So we're starting the week, anaerobic capacity intervals here. So want to utilize that lunge matrix stretch to warm up, get your body good and ready, because these are going to be hard efforts, but for short intervals. So we're talking about 30-second anaerobic capacity intervals here. This workout is going to fly by. One of the keys to working out at this intensity, at this kind of higher level, is to take the recoveries extra light. So there's an easy pace range listed, obviously, but if it is 100% okay to drop under that easy pace range in order to get the recovery you need to be able to go again for the next interval. I want you to avoid as best as possible going into a walk. That's ultimately going to actually make your legs a little bit heavier. It's going to make it harder to get started again. However, if you feel like you can't recover in the interval duration given, it's okay to jog a little bit longer, up to a minute, in order to jump in and be able to get better recovery for the next hard set. So for a lot of adult athletes, we're so focused all the time on completing the duration of the workout. So if things aren't going well, is adjusting down to like 90%, 80%, 70% so we can get to the end, even if it's not at our peak intensity or our peak quality. And for workouts of this, you want to do the exact opposite. You need to take the time that you need in order to be able to go back to that high level, but you have to take it to the high level. If you're not going there, you're not getting the benefit out of this workout. It has to go to that high intensity place and then take the recovery. And if you can't take it back there another time, that's okay. It's not time to take it to 80% of that. It's time just to go ahead, go into your cool down, live to fight another day, if you will. Finishing the week, of course, with our long run here. This is the run that wants to look easy, feel easy, etc. So our long run every week, it's not an opportunity to add intervals. There shouldn't be much structure to this. This is just easy, breezy, beautiful, fun. Hope a great opportunity to get outside, even in this cold weather. Take advantage of hopefully some pretty sunny days. But just keep that in mind. This is an easy effort start to finish. There's one question that came up for the half marathon group. I wanted to make sure I included here as well, because pacing on these intervals is always a very tricky thing. And I thought this was a great question. So the question was, I'm working on finding paces, and I wanted to know if it's better to overshoot paces or undershoot paces. I'm having a hard time finding my pace, and I imagine the answer is practice, but any tips? And so in this style of workout, and when I say this style, not really talking about the 20-minute test, being much more thoughtful about the anaerobic capacity intervals that we're about to spend a lot more time doing. I get to see athletes do these workouts in person routinely. And even at this short distance, 30 seconds, one of the biggest mistakes I see when people go to do these workouts is that they overshoot the pace immediately. And while it is a hard pace, it's very far from a sprint. So it's not a sprint, it is a hard run. And you need to be able to find the disparity between hard running and sprinting, because as these workouts start to get a little bit longer, it's going to exceed the time in which you're going to be able to sprint. So thinking about wanting to set you up for success in these intervals, I would much rather see an athlete undershoot in their first interval. Maybe be a little bit slow on the pace and then be able to adjust on the second interval and try to go a little bit harder. And if they're a little bit under pace, adjust again on the next interval to maybe go a little bit harder. But this in general is going to be a pace that a lot of people are not familiar with, that you haven't included in your routine very often. It's a lot of pace that most athletes don't include in their routine, period, to kind of taking it to this level here. So be patient. It's part of the fun, part of the journey to experiment with this, to try new things, to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone. That is exactly how we find adaptation with athletes, is try to apply a new stimulus, try something a little bit outside of the norm, and that's where you find progress. If you just repeat and repeat and repeat the same thing, you're not going to get that progress that you're looking for. So there's a great opportunity to kind of find that and open up our higher end. But going back to the pacing here is be controlled with the pacing. Try not to overshoot it early. If these workouts in general, you're best to undershoot and adjust up as you go. You're going to find a lot more success with that and be able to execute the workouts at a much higher level. Otherwise, that is all for week 1. We are off and running. Thanks so much for tuning in. I can't wait to see you back here for week 2.